Good morning and happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Daily Grind. I'm your host Chump Change. This is live and recorded. For those of you that might be new here, we typically do is go over crypto news and news in general in the space. I update myself, bring you guys along for the ride. Let's see who's in the house, then we'll get into this. Mr. All Set, good morning, sir. We got Andrew Masad, Silver Days, Crypto Frank, my man.
Perfect.
Good to see you, buddy. Steve Mint, let's see who else is here. Leo Lustig, good to see you. Peepaw Bill. Let's see. Sorry, scrolling through. Black Hat Team, Steven Cicero, good morning, sir. Good to see you. Alexander, I might have already said that, but good morning. Good morning. Zapirate, Miss Deborah, good morning. Savage White, good to see you. All right, everybody else I may have missed, I apologize, but look at this market. Frickin' Hadouken for Donald Trump becoming victorious in this presidential election. The 47th president of the United States. If I get to speak right.
Eat shit, Gary.
Bitcoin 74,390 bucks. We hit 75.3 last night during the election. Insane. We have Ethereum at 26.42. Solana. So wait, why is Solana up here now? Solana, maybe just because it's deep freaking green. Look at this, $186. Oh my god. Crazy. BitTensor 535 bucks, up 24%. Man, look at all this green, dude. Dogecoin 20 cents. That's amazing.
Perfect.
I told you it was gonna pop off if we won for sure. It's up 20% today. That's crazy. And Caspa's still over here being like freaking disappointing, but it's up 12%. So almost 12 cents. Actually, it's I think it was closer to 12 cents actually last night. Let's see. LTC's up at 70 bucks, just about 69.93 to be exact. Near Protocols at 415. Phantom at 65 cents. Everything is freaking booming today. Uniswap up 30%, just about $9.05. Jesus, this is gonna be a good 4 years, people. It's gonna be a good 4 years. XRP even went up 2 cents. Look at that. Oh man. All right, crypto bubbles, let's see what we got over here. Look at this, biggest earner of the day seems to be GOAT. Look at that.
It's a fucking goat.
45.2% up on the day. I still have no idea what this is. GOATCS Maximus though. It's up to 73 cents. Everything's crazy. I'm not even gonna go through this anymore because it's just meme coins are popping off. Everything's popping off. This is gonna be crazy. All right, flashbang over here. Fear and Greed Index. I think we are still at a 70. We're still at a 70. Yesterday, the day before, all at a 70. This is perfect. I'm glad this isn't like spiking way up here. It probably will tomorrow. I ain't gonna lie, it's probably gonna be over 75 looking at the market today, but yeah, I want it to be under 75. That's what we like to see throughout the, well, hopefully towards the end of the year, right? I know it's wishful thinking, but whatever, I don't care. Let the bull run begin, baby. We're at $74,664 real quick before I get into the top 10 coins. You can see last night, 6 hours ago, we hit $75,358. Brand new Bitcoin, all-time high. Gary left the SEC already? No, he did not.
Perfect.
That would be amazing.
Eat shit, Gary.
That would be amazing. You imagine? Is that true? Send me a link if that's true. That can't be true. Can't be true. All right, we got top 10 coins over here. Buy Coin market cap over on CoinGecko at a $1.47 trillion market cap, starting with Bitcoin. We have Ethereum, Tether, Solana, BNB, USDC, XRP, Dogecoin, Lotto Staked Ether, and Tron in 10th place at a $14.1 billion market cap. Dogecoin's at almost a $30 billion market cap. Holy shit, that's crazy, insane. Shiba's in 14th place over here. Looks like that's taking a pump as well. $11 billion market cap, 11.2 to be exact. Damn, things are crazy today. Litecoin $70 in 25th place, $5.2 billion market cap. Near Protocols got a $5 billion market cap at 416. Caspa again just under 12 cents at a $2.9 billion market cap in 35th place. ETC is at 1923 at a $2.8 billion market cap. Crazy, man. Look at, let's see, hold on, where are the memes? Let's go to the memes quick. We'll get into the mining segment in a second. How do I do this? I forget. No, I don't want AI memes. How do I go to the list of shit? I guess we go to AI memes. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna go to all memes. How do I go to all memes? Oh, right here. Duh. It's freaking first tab. All right, let's see. All the meme coins. I want to see what's pumping today. We had Dogecoin, Shiba, Pepe. As you guys know, Elon Musk loves memes, and he was a big part of the selection. Bonk is up today. Pretty decent amount. Looks like Whiff and Popcat both jumped up, but they're in the red for some reason. Weird. Is anybody still buying meme coins? I'm not buying any meme coins, but it's kind of interesting. Doge to $5. Yeah, right. I wish. Listen, let's hit $1 first. All right. Baby Doge. I have 11 billion, I think. Baby Doge. I should probably see how much that's worth. It's probably not worth anything. A couple $100. That's about it. But man, meme coins going off the chains today. Everything's going off the chains today. Look at MAGA. That's actually down 33.2%. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's jump into the mining segment of things. I want to see what we're looking like over here for miners today. The L7 17 gigahash unit. You guys know I like to timestamp this stuff. We got $27.38 a day on this unit. Again, merge mining Litecoin and Doge. About 85% of that's in Dogecoin. The Volk miner D1 is in second place, 17 gigahash. It's a rip off of the L9, but way worse wattage, so I don't recommend anybody purchasing this unit. 26.58 you'd be making on that per day. The L9 16 gigahash unit, 33.60 over here, making $25.76 a day. Again, merge mining Litecoin and Doge. The AL1 Pro 16.6 terahash unit at 37.30 for wattage, making $23.76 a day mining lithium. How is lithium looking today? Up 6% to $1.22. Not too impressive, but it's better than being in the hole down here at 110, I guess, or 112. Could be worse. Let's see. The AL1 15.6 terahash unit making $22.31 a day. We get the X44P mining ETC hash, 23.4 gigahash is at $25.50 for wattage, making $21.51 a day. Could be worse, I guess. Could be worse. I hope ETC pops off if Ethereum ever freaking gets out of the spot it's at. Where is Ethereum right now? Ethereum is so disappointing this time around. Even though it's up 8%, it's only $2,600. Man, I really do think it's gonna get. I was thinking before Bitcoin started going crazy, way back, you know, before this whole election thing was a huge deal and everything else. Ethereum getting to like, you know, 5 to 7K was probably a realistic number. But man, it is slacking lately. So we need this thing to do something. Somebody poke it with a stick, please. All right, we got the L7. You guys know I got this thing down at Terra Hosting. Shout out to them if you're interested in hosting. Links in the description. My 9050 pulling 3,425 watts. I am making $10.91 a day. Amazing. Merge mining Litecoin and Doge.
Perfect.
That's great. I cannot complain at all. That's great. Let's see. Anything else? Nothing else really like jumping out at me. I really just want to get to the new stuff, to be honest. I want to see what the hell's going on in this world right now. Everyone's probably freaking out. The AL Box 2 Plus, I got this thing in the solar trailer. 1 terahash unit, pulling 480 watts, making 82 cents a day.
Bruh.
That's terrible. What's my S19K making today? Realistically, it's 0 for me because I'm solo mining Bitcoin Cash, but I'm losing 56 cents a day at 10 cents per kilowatt hour.
Bruh.
Terrible. All right, moving on. GPUs. Let's see. Aleo seems to be top of the charts. They changed the font. They changed the font in this, didn't they? Looks weird. Aleo, top of the charts. Carlson over here. Wait, hold on. I saw. Did Pyron really have a pump yesterday? Panda in Hawk's chat was like, Pyron just went up 400 something percent. It definitely didn't. It definitely didn't. Mr. Panda trying to scam us all. I just had to see. Sorry, I had to go look. Squirrel real quick. Carlson made me think of it. Zealous as well for the 170HX, but Aleo seems to be the top of the charts. I guess you guys should just mine that if you're still GPU mining. Is anybody still GPU mining? Anybody here? Let me know in the chat. Typical panda. $1.30 over here. 11% up on the day for a Leo. Still looking pretty shitty on the 7-day. Again, these charts are ass, but whatever. Yeah, that seems to be the consensus. All right, let's do it, guys. Let's do it. We're getting into the news segment of things. Mr. Donald Trump has won the presidential election, 47th president of the United States. This is over here on Fox News. Let's see what they got to say about it. Let's do it.
Former President Donald Trump is projected to be the 47th president of the United States of America. It would be the first time since Grover Cleveland and the second time ever a president has won 2 non-consecutive terms.
It has been one of the greatest political comebacks of all modern history. Donald Trump securing more than 270 electoral votes, we are projecting, flipping battlegrounds of Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin red, and defending North Carolina.
Holy shit, I didn't realize his son was that tall. God damn.
So it's an incredible result after an unprecedented election cycle filled with twists and turns, including 2 assassination attempts.
And that's not to mention 2 impeachments. The legal...
How tall is Barron Trump? Is he like 6'5"? Like, he looks fucking giant.
Battles and days spent in courtrooms instead of on the campaign trail. And despite efforts from the mainstream media and Democrat elites to write him off, Trump is projected to be the 47th president of the United States. He addressed his supporters earlier this morning.
I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. I want to also thank my beautiful wife, Melania, First Lady.
By the way, I've never been more disappointed to be part of Massachusetts in my life than I was last night looking at that state being blue. Just saying.
Who has the #1 best-selling book in the country? Can you believe that? Oh, no, she's done a great job. Works very hard to help people. Now I can say Vice President-elect of the United States, J.D. Vance. He turned out to be a good choice. I took a little heat at the beginning, but he was, I knew the brain was a good one.
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
Facts.
This will
1000%.
forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country.
Wow. It's hard to put all this in perspective, but there's other major stories this morning. Republicans are set to regain control of the Senate, perhaps in a big way, ending a 4-year stretch in the minority after flipping an Ohio seat red. We have live team coverage on the historic morning. Madeline Rivera will give us an update on all the Senate races, and a huge win for Republicans, and many on the precipice of doing just that. Kevin Corke has the key issues on the ballot in different states. But first, Lucas Tomlinson is live at the White House with Trump's path to victory. Lucas.
Well, good morning, Brian. As Steve and J.D. Vance said adroitly, this has to be considered the greatest political comeback in history. We knew who would win. The battleground states would win this election. And, of course, it all started with Pennsylvania. Whoever wins Pennsylvania, no doubt, was going to win the race. The race was called in Pennsylvania at 1:19 a.m. No question, Trump's campaigning in the western part of the state recently helped move this race over the finish line. The state is the second largest producer of natural gas, and where fracking produces a majority of this country's energy. Working-class Americans helped move Trump over the finish line. Now, let's move down to Georgia. The state was called for Trump at 12:48 a.m., a state Trump narrowly lost in 2020 and vital to his re-election win. It was in Wisconsin, let's go over there next, that put Trump over the edge, over the finish line, winning by 3 points and sealing the victory. Trump taking the blue walls of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And, of course, down in North Carolina, that was the first of the swing states that Trump won, setting a tone for the evening. The state was called for Trump at 11:43 p.m. Now, Arizona, moving out west, has not been called yet. We had been warned it would take days to count all the votes. And in Nevada, another state that has not been called for Trump yet, but as you can see, he's up by roughly 4 points. Same goes for Michigan. No question, Israel's war in Gaza and Lebanon played a role here. Trump is up by a few points there. Now let's show you the map, Brian, showing President Trump's path to the 270 finish line. He's at 277 right now. We did not see the red wave during the midterms, but we see it now. And once again, there's no question that working class Americans and minorities helped Donald Trump become the second president to win non-consecutive terms since Grover Cleveland in 1892, guys.
Indeed. Right. All right. Thank you very much. You know, and as Lucas is standing there at the White House, you got to figure Joe Biden upstairs watching on the big screen.
Joe Biden this morning is saying, I told everybody I'm the only one who could beat Donald Trump. But of course, we saw that Joe Biden, who went to that debate, could not beat Donald Trump.
I couldn't care less about Joe Biden. I really could.
Well, he paved the way for this.
Right. He paved the way by being a terrible president. And this is what the American people said. It's not my opinion. It's not our opinion. This is a total rejection in every way. And the areas in the demographics that Donald Trump didn't win, he gained massively. If you even look at Chicago, Joe Biden, 80+% of the vote. It's now 60% for Harris. She did not outperform Biden in a single state. And for those people who said this is way too close to call and Donald Trump is blowing in at the last minute, and what about that MSG rally, and what about that comedian? You still don't understand the country.
Yeah, because when you look at the voter analysis, it tells a much different story than all the pundits that went on TV. 56% of Hispanic support for Harris, 41% for Donald Trump. I mean, that is historic when you're looking at the numbers.
Right, because Democrats live off the minority vote, but do nothing for them.
That's right.
And they're tired of it.
Look at the support that Trump had among the Latino and Hispanic voters. This went up. 4 years ago, he was getting 35%, and this year he got 41%. And then when it comes to Lawrence, you told us this was happening.
Everyone ignored this trend. We were screaming at the top of our lungs that there is a new day, and he almost doubled his support amongst all black voters, not just black males. 2020 was at 8%. At 2024, 15%. Almost doubling it.
You know, and historically, the Democrats lead with the younger voters. And in fact, last night, a lot of people on the political left were talking about how, look at the long lines at the colleges. Well, okay, there were long lines. And Kamala Harris did wind up with a majority of people under 30. Donald Trump came right behind her, just about 6 points behind. But here's the one, and this goes to a whole suite of numbers that we've got, about what really had people go and push the button for Donald Trump. And that is this. In our Fox voter analysis, we talked to 110,000 people across the country, and those falling behind financially went for Trump by 63%, only about a third of the country for Donald Trump. And ultimately, the other number that is the reason he will be the next president of the United States, 70% of Americans said America is on the wrong track and they want something.
So is this the end of legacy media? Is this the end of you watching other networks and they tell you how to vote? They saw right through this. They saw right through them peddling all the lies, the conspiracy theory.
Dude, there was so much bullshit and negative just propaganda on the news stations. It's unreal. I'm so happy that he won, only because like I truly believe if he didn't win, Twitter and Elon Musk were completely going to be derailed with the just having a completely truthful platform.
This is a man who has survived so much. All of the court cases, all of the investigations, 2 impeachments, 2 special prosecutors, opposition from a chunk of his own party, including his former vice president. And last night he said at the speech, or this morning I should say, he said, everyone told me that God had a purpose for my life, that he spared me during these assassination attempts.
A couple of things come to mind. I walked in today, and I know we declared I was up at 2:05. We declared at 2:25, 2:35 around there. I watched the president's speech in the car ride in. And I thought, I was just shocked to see nobody else is declaring that Trump won. What more do you need to see? Yeah. The popular vote, almost every battleground state, almost impossible to catch up. In fact, as I'm walking in today, CNN has an announcement. New Jersey will go to Harris. Yeah. Really? That's your announcement?
And
Newsweek, go ahead.
And they know.
Wait, so hold on. How long do we have until it's like official? Is it official now? In like the bullshit news stations, like the Communist News Channel is just not saying it. Like, how does that work? Like, they have like 5 days to try to fix it and change things. All right, I thought it was official now. I think it's official now. This was this morning too. This wasn't even that long ago. When was this? An hour ago.
No, Brian, to your point, that he's going to win this.
And the popular vote.
The panic has already started they're blaming voters. They're saying it didn't work as it relates to, they're talking about his indictments. They're talking about everything else but what the American people said, which is the economy was the number one issue.
They want to change. The American people
and immigration as well. And there was no response on the campaign trail to any of those issues from the Democrats.
Well, a lot of them are waiting for the Associated Press to go ahead and project history.
But can I just add one thing?
Let me just finish this one thing about it. When you look at, because it goes with what I was just talking about, when you look at the big newspapers right now, to your point, Ainsley, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal all are just simply talking about the comeback, and he's on the verge. So it's on the verge until they officially declare.
So a couple of things. If you want to know how sober the country is and how detached American politicians are, in California, the crackdown on crime bill.
Yep.
Prop 34, which he says,
She
I'm
didn't
not
wanna
even
give
going
an
to
answer.
tell you what the vote is.
Yeah.
These people who are victims of smash and grab small business owners, those people that don't feel comfortable going out of their house, going to a theater, wherever, stealing their car, whatever it is, they came called in California to crack down on crime. I think that says so much about the country.
That Kamala Harris wouldn't admit how she voted.
And it's no big deal, according to Senator Murphy. It's no big deal.
Right.
It's no big deal. She doesn't want to tell everyone
that to the
that
voters.
she's tough on crime. Well, the voters have demanded that the candidate tell them what they will do, as opposed to, I am going to be joyful, I'm going to be happy, and that should be enough. I'm younger, and I'll be different, but I won't do anything different.
Well, there were a bunch of propositions and amendments on the ballot, including a lot the pot and abortion down in Florida. We're going to talk all about the various other ballot initiatives in a little bit. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Oh, Brian Kilmeade, shut up. All right. Let's see. All right, let's move on to this. Top real estate investor slams Mark Cuban for missing in action. What's this about? I want to see what this is about. 5 hours ago, it kind of piqued my interest when I read the headline. And then what I'm gonna do is, I don't know, I might play some of these that I picked up, but I kind of want to just go to the news channels and see what else is coming out like right now instead of like, an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
We will launch the most extraordinary economic boom the world has ever seen, and we'll do it by
I'm just gonna skip the videos
utilizing
today.
the assets that we have. If you vote for Kamala, you will have 4 more years of misery, failure, and disaster.
You meant to say Obama.
Our country may never recover. Vote for me, and I will
picture.
deliver rising wages, soaring income, and a colossal surge of jobs, wealth, and opportunity for Americans of every race, religion, color, and creed.
And then, of course, former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris making their final push to voters last night at several rallies in battleground states. Joining me now is Cardone Capital and Cardone Training Technology CEO, private equity fund manager and real estate investor, Grant Cardone. Grant, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I saw your post the other day. You've done your thing. You voted. It is election day. What is your outlook for the candidates' economic agendas?
Well, if Kamala gets in, Maria, it will be cataclysmic. We'll have a already accelerated job number loss. We had 12,000 jobs last month. It's absolutely horrendous. All that's been propped up. The last 10 out of 15 cycles have been revised downward. We need somebody in there that's got confidence. We need somebody in there that's not going to flounder. We need tax incentives for hiring, tax incentives for investing in equipment and taking risk. And everything that she wants to do is tax those people that are out there doing their thing. So for me to go and expand my company, I need benefits to do that, to take those risks. So I think Donald Trump will bring us a boom of confidence into the marketplace so that people like me can go out into the marketplace and hire, expand, and take on new risk.
How important are these endorsements from people like Joe Rogan, who spoke with President Trump the other day and yesterday came out endorsing President Trump? Do you think that resonates? Do you think that matters in an election so tight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can. I think Joe's got he's a friend of mine. He can inspire people to go out there. I like the way he did it. He invited both of those guys on the podcast. One of them accepted it and did 3 hours. The other one, for whatever reason, couldn't show up. And the fact that he waited.
She would never last 3 hours with him, just trying to be a normal person, because she just talks in circles.
Until today to say, hey, I'm endorsing Trump and just did a fair podcast. I think that's legit. Now, all these other characters that they're using over there, this paid entertainment, I don't personally like that. I think it's a turnoff. I think it's actually hurt the Democratic Party for those people that are more conservative. They see the rappers and the endorsements by celebrities that are doing movies. I think it turns people off that are leaning toward a more conservative viewpoint.
Grant, I've been asking my guests this morning what you believe to be the most damaging economic policy coming out of Kamala Harris's campaign. A lot of people are worried about the 28% corporate tax rate, obviously. We haven't seen that kind of a corporate tax rate in a long time. And when we saw high corporate rates, many companies picked up and moved to Ireland, where the corporate tax rate was 9%. Others are talking about this 25% tax on unrealized gains. And then others are just talking about the regulatory framework. Do you think there's one or two issues that are most important when looking at Kamala Harris's agenda that's turning off business?
Well, she flounders. She doesn't know what she's doing. I mean, she's not, maybe she's got an economics degree, but she's never done anything in business. She doesn't know budgets. She doesn't know what things cost. Her proposal to build 3 million homes, that would cost $10 billion. She passed a $3.2 billion bill that they named the Inflation Reduction Act. It did not reduce inflation. It increased it. Who's going to build the homes? Okay. The regulations alone would take you 4 to 7 years to get that many homes built. And she's
well, I mean, maybe that's why she's bringing all the illegals in to just work for the government and build all these homes.
claiming she can do it in a year. Where's the plan? Where's the execution? And if you can do that, why haven't you done that? And I think that that's what the voters are going to say. Like, if you could do that, and if we had this problem, why haven't you done it already while you were with Biden?
Yeah.
And
well, it's a good. Yeah.
Interest rates have to come down. Go ahead, Maria.
Well, I want to talk more about the housing market. You are an expert in this field. The National Association of Realtors 2024 profile of home buyers and sellers survey found that first-time home buyers hit a historic low of 24%. That same survey found that the average buyer age hit a record high at 56 years old. Wow. A first-time home buyer at 56 years old, Grant, averaging at 38 years old, and repeat buyers at 61 years old. The median household income for first-time, repeat, and typical buyers.
Throw in the chat how old you were when you bought your first house. Throw it in the chat. I was 23 when I bought my first house.
Also hit all-time highs in 2023. How would you assess the home buying market today under the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? The share of new home purchases increased slightly to 15%.
Crypto Frank takes the cake, 19. God damn. Good for you, bro. That's sick.
Perfect. But existing home purchases declined to 85%, reflecting that same housing market as 2007.
Yeah, this is worse. This is probably worse than 2007, 2008 when we had the economic.
No way, Kirk. 16 years old. Is that even possible? You're not even an adult yet. How'd that happen? Is that real? Are you joking?
Economic collapse because of the non-activity. Listings have gone up, but there's no activity. Why? Because interest rates are at 7.25% today. That means a $3,500 mortgage payment. That means you got to make $10,000 a month to be able to be approved for that mortgage. Interest rates have to come down in this country. There's absolutely no reason, except that the Fed has more control over the president right now than the president has over the Fed. When Donald Trump was in office, we had interest rates below 2%. Rates must come down. This is the greatest country in the world. We should have the cheapest, lowest interest rates on the planet. Interest rates do not create inflation, contrary to what Mr. Cuban, who disappeared now for the last 3 days, missing in action.
Yeah, isn't that funny how he just disappears after he endorses Kamala?
Say interest rates stimulate activity. And until interest rates, Maria, breach 4%, you will have no housing activity. And I'm confident that Donald Trump will put tremendous pressure on the Fed and or get rid of the Fed in order to get rates to where we're competitive in the world and that the middle class can buy homes again.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Mark Cuban. I guess he disappeared after making that disparaging comment about women who support Trump.
He's trying to be relevant. He's trying to stay relevant, and now he's irrelevant. So he overshot his mouth. I mean, I was reaching back to Mark. I said, Mark, why don't you help? I got a Bernie Marino, my friend Bernie Marino is running in Ohio. Why don't you come onto this space on X and talk about it? He's like, I don't do local politics.
Wow.
I'm like, what?
Wow. All right. Well,
I do the big stuff and talk out my ass. Weird. All right. I'm going to start pulling some new news stuff. Anthony Pompliano.
Take a look at crypto.
Just showed up on CNBC television. We have the first Bitcoin president, says Anthony Pomp. This was posted 16 minutes ago. Let's do it.
Take a look at crypto this morning. We have already a few times here with us now. Getting after it relentlessly, right? Anthony Pompliano, founder and CEO of Professional Capital Management.
So
and you are. You're always
happy.
in a positive mood. Even though crypto is not always positive, it is this morning. You expect more new
He is always in a super good mood.
highs on Bitcoin.
I mean, new all-time high. Satoshi couldn't have written a better script, having it hit a new all-time high on the night of the election. And I think one of the most important things is we have the first Bitcoin president. President Trump ran on a campaign point that he was going to protect Bitcoin. He was going to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And I think that you saw Bitcoin's price kind of reflect having somebody who was so pro-Bitcoin win the White House.
It's relatively...
This is amazing.
It's not that recent, I guess. But so you think this is the real Donald Trump on Bitcoin that he's been for the last, how long, a year and a half?
I think that he's surrounded by enough people who really understand this. You know, people like Bitcoin Magazine CEO David Bailey, many others who have really spent the time with him. And one of the interesting things is whether he believes in Bitcoin or not is almost a moot point. Is what is he going to do? And if he's going to protect it and not be abrasive, that's a win. But if he also creates the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, I think that'll be a huge tailwind, and it'll kick off this global game theory, right? If the United States...
He's also, he likes money. Bitcoin is money. What do you want? I mean, he's seen it, you know, donations and all this stuff politically, like... He made his own NFTs, for Christ's sakes. Of course, he understands crypto to a point. Mr. Rude Puts, thank you so much for the 249 euros, I believe that is. Perfect. So BTC to the moon, Doge, let's go. Big party, dude. Appreciate you.
States starts to lean in and welcome Bitcoin and say, hey, this is an asset that we want on our balance sheet, other countries are going to have to respond. And the interesting thing about Bitcoin is that it's been a bottoms-up adoption story. Individuals adopted it first. Now we see corporations and financial institutions. But the central banks are some of the biggest buyers of gold. Gold is up huge. And so if central banks start to buy Bitcoin and put it in their reserves, that would be a massive tailwind for Bitcoin.
Insane.
So even short of a sovereign wealth fund or anything like that, Andrew, we haven't Becky, we haven't talked about Gary Gensler in light of what's going on. Have we?
That he's not going to have a job?
You tell me.
Of course he's not going to have a job.
What
do we need to talk about here?
We know who's not going to be SEC commissioner.
All right, well, the problem is you can't just fire somebody, right? When you're in a government position, you have to. It's way more complicated than that. So he's probably going to have to push him into a different role and allow him to quit on his own or something, or just give him real shitty conditions where he's going to want to quit.
Who's not going to be the SEC commissioner? I can tell you who's not going to run the FTC. I can tell you who's not going to, right? I can go through the list.
Yeah.
It's going to be a house cleaning, obviously.
Mark Cuban is not going to be if he wanted to be at this point. You think Gensler's gone, and you think that would be good?
I think people expect whenever a new president comes in, they're going to, kind of play musical chairs with all the regulatory organizations. What I do think we are on the precipice of is a kind of an economic explosion. Right? We have somebody who's coming in who obviously is very business friendly. He's surrounded by people who are very business friendly. They have some radical ideas in a positive way in terms of what they can do to cut taxes, drive GDP growth, use the country's balance sheet to try to close the deficit gap. And so I don't expect them to be able to do everything that they're saying that they can do, right? When you're on the campaign trail, you say a lot of stuff, but if they can accomplish 50% of it,
so which 50%? Like, which are the ones that you think are most important and maybe most likely to get put through?
Well, I think actually, if you look at what the American people did last night, they basically issued a mandate. They said, we want lower inflation, we want affordable housing, we want a secure border, we want a government that doesn't go and engage in more war, and we want to feel like we are safe, secure, and strong at home. And so if you are the president coming in and you can say, how do I get inflation down and under control? If you look at home affordability, start to deregulate and allow people to build more housing in this country.
Right, because the problem is not giving people $25,000 to say you can go ahead and buy a house. The problem is creating more supply.
For a minute, I thought you were pitching the inflation trade. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. All these things that he's going to do with tariffs and cutting taxes and, not
all
taxing
good for Bitcoin.
Yeah, all good for Bitcoin because of inflation. Then you just said he's going to bring inflation down. I don't know who I believe. I don't know which part of you I believe.
I think there's a difference between skyrocketing inflation and currency debasement, right? And the currency debasement is why Bitcoin goes up. Inflation is usually happens alongside of it.
Isn't
it? It's not in the sense that you can have the currency continue to debase and lose purchasing power without having that inflation number spike to 9%. Right? And I think that's what we really saw here was we saw inflation spike over 9% during the Biden administration.
So what do you think it should be? 5%, 6%, 7%?
I tend to think that the inflation rate is not 2%. It's higher than that, but it's not going to be 5 to 10%.
Do you think the Fed goes along with that? If they start to see inflation picking back up, wouldn't the Fed then raise rates? And wouldn't that have wouldn't that curb inflationary economic expansion?
One of the biggest questions I think that we're going to face as a country is how involved should the president and the executive branch be involved in monetary policy? Donald Trump has said that he thinks the president should be more involved. We obviously have had a situation where
you think inflationary stuff
independent.
and then saying we're going to keep rates going down, interest rates going down is the right policy?
I don't think that you can keep rates going down if inflation is spiking. And so I think that's where you get a lot of complexity. And it's not as clear in terms of when inflation is spiking, what do you do to get it down?
And by the way, the bond market isn't paying attention to the Fed lowering rates at this point anyway, not on the long end, not even on the short end at this point. But the 10-year is all the way back up at 4.47. So there's only so much that any administration or any Federal Reserve can do.
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting about policy is you kind of draw, the perfect playbook, right? You're like, hey, this is the theory of what could happen. But then that plan meets the real world. And so you can try to do all
Mike
these
Tyson,
things.
Right? You can do all these things till somebody punches you in the face.
Yeah.
What if that person punching you in the face is the bond market?
And it's also a very complex system. So you say, hey, I'm going to go get home affordability down. Okay. Or you go and you do that. As soon as you do that, all of a sudden inflation spikes somewhere else. You got to go and try to address that. Then asset prices crash, right? And so you're just constantly
incentivizing people to build more housing supply. That seems like the right way to go at it.
And one of the questions I think with housing supply is how much is the president and the national government able to do that versus is it local governments? One of the things that I say is for your investment portfolio, the Federal Reserve chairman is more important than the president. But for many Americans, actually, who's on their local city council may be more important than who's in the White House.
Awesome. Love Anthony Pompliano. All right, let me see. I am going to put this video up.
Text.
So this is big tech. Let's see. Trump's victory is positive for big tech on the regulatory front, says Deepwater's Gene Munster. This was posted 29 minutes ago.
Stocks are on the move this morning. Tesla shares are surging. In fact, they're up by more than 13% right now. You've also got Apple and Alphabet that are higher. Apple just barely. It's up by about 6 cents. Meta shares down by
look at Tesla. Tesla's doing crazy.
About 1.6% this morning. And joining us right now to talk through all of it is Gene Munster. He's
actually, there was another video that I saw that said Tesla could gain like $40 to $50 per share just because of this election.
Our asset management managing partner. Gene, we've talked a lot about the tax policy proposals that we might be seeing in this new administration. We have not touched as much on the regulatory overhang and what that might look like for some of these tech stocks. I think people are assuming it will be a very different regulatory overhang, but at the same time, the tech stocks were targeted by the first Trump administration. So how do you play this out?
I think you put the three factors together here, Becky. It's first the tariffs, the taxes, that piece. That's probably a net mixed neutral. On the regulatory front, this is going to be positive for big tech. There's no question about it, is that smaller government means smaller regulatory influence. This is a direct positive impact today on Google. The probability that they get broken up just declined today. A direct positive impact on Apple. The probability that they can maintain that very lucrative $15 billion search agreement with Google. It's about 20% of Apple's operating income, them keeping that increased. And the probability of big tech being able to acquire companies like Databricks, Anthropic, Perplexity, these companies 24 hours ago really off the table. These are kind of cornerstone, anointed AI companies that would be coveted by some of the big tech. I think that probability just went up. So I think when you put the mix together, at least on the political side, this is a positive day, with the one outlier, of course, being Meta. Trump's comments back in March that Facebook is the enemy of the people. I think that basically reduces the probability that we're going to see some sort of a TikTok ban on. So I think that piece of regulation in TikTok, I think that declined dramatically today. But overall, Becky, I think that this is, on the regulatory side, it's most promising for big tech.
Hey, Gene, you had the FTC with Lina Khan almost working hand in hand with the EU with some of these big regulatory reaches. Apple has faced so much trouble with the EU in particular, just what we've heard this week about the new fine that could be coming from the EU or is expected to be coming from the EU. How does this change if the United States regulators aren't working along with the EU? Will they stand up for these companies? Will it change the European strategy?
I don't think it's going to have much impact on how Europe is approaching things. But again, the probability that something happens on the regulatory front in the U.S., let's just kind of look for one piece that has been the center of a bullseye, which is what Apple is doing on their App Store. EU's required a lot of changes related to some of their policies around steering. Apple's won some important cases in the U.S., but there's still this lingering concern from investors about what happens with the take rate on the App Store. And I think that the EU historically has set precedent. I don't believe that is going to be the case, at least for the next 4 years. And so I think for investors, and just take that case of Apple, they can rest better tonight knowing that there's probably not going to be that pressure coming from the EU. Again, I think that this is just a marked step forward. And why it's so important, why this timing is so important, is because AI, I think, we're still early in the phases. Ultimately, I believe this is going to be more impactful than what the internet is. And I think having less of a regulatory environment is going to be most advantageous to these companies.
Can we talk Tesla very quickly? That stock up 13%, and we've posited a lot about why that may be. Obviously, Elon Musk, very close to this administration, could even be playing a major role in this administration. What does it mean for Tesla shares? Obviously, better regulatory overlook, maybe less competition that's going to be coming in from China and other places. But Tesla also has probably roughly 40% of its sales coming from China, and that Trump administration with these tariffs may not be making many friends over in China.
I believe Tesla is up today because of emotion. And I think the emotion of Tesla investors, their leader, of course, is Elon. He just had a big bet that paid off. And then we quickly look to what's the next big bet and the probabilities. And the next big bet for Tesla is around autonomy. And he's been very clear that this is the future of the company. And forget about what's going to happen with EVs and tax credit. What matters when it comes to Trump and Elon Musk is Trump's ability to make it easier for Musk to advance what they're doing around autonomy, around their tech stack, to use less LiDAR, for example. That is going to be the regulatory piece around FSD autonomy is going to be more challenging than the technology piece. And that took a big step forward today. And what that means is the potential for the robotaxi fee that could add 20% to Tesla's business in the next 5 to 7 years.
Gene, but if you look at Rivian, it's down. What's the thought there?
The Rivian doesn't have the autonomy story to it. And I think that when it comes, again, the tax credit piece, who knows what's going to happen with that. Trump's kind of adjusted his message more recently on that. But the reason why I think Rivian's down and Tesla is up is that Elon has showed that he can make a big bet and be successful. His next big bet's autonomy. And I think his relationship with Trump will change the relationship between Tesla and NHTSA. And I think that's going to be positive for what's going to come around autonomy.
Interesting. All right, there was one other thing I wanted to watch. Where is it? Hold on. Let me find it. Sorry, I don't mean to make you guys wait. Trying to see. There it is. Donald Trump. This one right here. This guy was for Harris. And he talks about the whole thing.
Tech stocks are on the move this morning. Tesla shares are surging. In fact, they're up by more than...
That's the same one. Why did it not copy it? Hold on.
Roger Altman here at 6 a.m., just at about 6 a.m., founder and senior chairman of Evercore. Good morning. You were supportive of Kamala Harris. I'm so curious what your takeaway of this election is as you look at what's happened here. How much of this was a repudiation of her personally? How much of it was a repudiation of the last 4 years? How much of it was a repudiation of the left, if that is to be said? And what kind of soul searching or introspection you think happens on a morning like this?
This was posted about an hour ago.
Well, do we have 4 or 5 hours?
We have 3. As it happens, we have 3.
We do have 4 today, yeah.
Well, first of all, I mean, I think you have to acknowledge that Trump is a gifted political athlete. I mean, he just is. And anybody who tries to say differently, I think, is just wrong. I'm not his biggest fan, but you have to acknowledge that. Secondly, the country obviously is shifting or has shifted to the right. I saw in an exit poll, only 29% of voters in that poll identified as liberal. And Trump dominated the other.
Is it the country shifting, or is it the Democratic Party that ran so far left?
Well, the result, I think, is the same. In other words, I would think it's some of each. I mean, if you look at for example, and Mike was just talking about the issues that dominated, the top 2 were the economy, especially cost of living, and immigration. Abortion was actually, based on what I saw in exit polls, pretty far down the list. Democrats would have expected that to be different, I think. And Trump, again, he dominated in terms of voters who cared most about the economy and voters who cared most about immigration. And so I think the country has shifted to the right. And by the way, we're going to see a very isolationist approach from Donald Trump, which is consistent historically with shifts to the right. But also, it is a repudiation.
How come no one knew there was a shift to that? I don't buy that. We had Arthur Brooks on, and every book he's ever written, one of his main premises is the country is center-right. Center-right. The vast, take away the coast, and it's center-right. And Barack Obama could have been elected twice by a center-right country, with Bill Clinton easily elected by a center-right country. I even think Joe Biden, after the first Trump election, you can't attribute it to a right-leaning country. I don't think it's shifted. Well, I just think it's center-right all the time. And what Becky said, the left is... Look at some of the basic tenets of the far left at this point, Roger. I mean, defunding police. And,
Bill Clinton would not be able to be a Democrat running as a Democrat.
The country hasn't changed. The Democratic Party has changed.
Let's get into that. I would just argue there is a conservative mood in the country.
Well, maybe it's from immigration.
That I would argue.
Maybe from 13 million illegal immigrants.
But at the same time, the American perception or the voter perception of the national version of the Democratic Party is really negative right now. There's no 2 ways about that. And let's be honest, Harris was not a strong candidate. She just wasn't.
Now you tell us.
Well,
you didn't tell us that last week.
Did I? Well, wait, I wasn't here last week.
The week before.
I think we've talked for a long time on this broadcast about how difficult it is.
We put a lot of lipstick on that candidate. I mean, that's a bad expression to use in this case. But we dressed her up, the mainstream media.
Just being straight here, did I expect a sweeping victory like this from Trump? No, I didn't. I thought it was going to be extremely close.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you see the magnitude of the victory, you cannot conclude anything else.
Well, I agree.
She was
I've always thought
candidate.
that.
Honestly speaking, 2 days ago, I would have said she's a really reasonably good candidate.
How? You've seen her word salad. You've seen her not answer questions. We had no idea what she stood for.
Well, in any event, I mean, we can make a judgment now that she wasn't a strong candidate.
I don't think you need hindsight.
And
you could have seen that coming.
Trump ran a campaign, give him credit, and he said this at his Madison Square Garden rally, the famous Reagan question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? He literally said that.
Right.
And the American people rather resoundingly said no.
Right.
And that proved...
So what do the Democrats do? Do they continue to what they've been, which is kind of labeling themselves the party of resistance and going down that path? Or do they say, okay, how do we remake ourselves and try and reconcile what we are hearing from the American people?
Well, first of all, we have to wait and see who wins the House. I think that's going to be a really big factor. It would seem a little improbable to me that the Democrats win the House, but it looks like it's going to come down to 5 seats in California in terms of who has 218. And if the Democrats win the House, then I think the dynamic will be different than if they've been swept across the board.
So they would then, you think the House would, at that point, say no to everything Donald Trump proposes, or would they try to find ways where there is common agreement?
Well, I think it depends on the issue. So,
immigration, let's say.
Well, if the Democrats are smart, they work out a solution on immigration. After all, they ended up supporting the Langford Compromise.
Correct.
Right.
And something around that ought to be possible to do, especially if Trump is supporting it. There probably have to be some tweaks to get him to support it. But the Democrats would be smart to get on board with that because the country wants it. But in terms of your question, I hope I might be wrong, but I think it's going to be a slow, bitter, and bloody internal process within the Democratic Party as to rebuilding itself.
And do you think the rebuild is about personnel and personality, or do you think it's a rebuild around different policies?
I think it's the brand. And
it's the brand.
What did Barry Diller say the other day? He said the same thing.
He suggested that 2028 was going to be a.
But he said that the Democrats need to, if it's a big Trump win, the
have
Democrats
to rethink.
need
Listen,
to
the Democrats are getting killed, my 2 cents, on cultural issues. Why have they done so poorly with, for example, non-college men voters? And there's so much evidence that it's cultural more than economics, although in this election it was both. And if the Democrats...
When you say cultural, just define that for folks. What you mean by that?
I think women in sport or men in sports, things like that. Yeah.
Well, that type of thing, transgender issues.
All the woke bullshit. That's what he's saying.
The progressive side of the party. And
nonsense.
I just think that if the Democrats don't get to a more, it's not just centrist, but it's centrist culturally position, they're going to have a hard time. And, if you look at these results, Mike Allen just talking about it, Trump did much better among women than Democrats thought he would. Last night, early in the evening, what I kept hearing was the gender gap for Harris in her favor among women is about the same as it is for Trump among men. 53% of the vote is expected to be women, therefore she'll win. Well, it turned out the gender gap in her favor among women was much smaller.
Interesting. All right, I'm trying to see if there's anything new that's just popping up now. Let's see, Fox Business. I don't think there's really anything new or super new. I guess we'll play this one.
East Coast, and I hope you're having a good Wednesday morning. It is time for the hot topic of the hour. Former President Donald Trump projected to become the 47th president, making him the second president in history to be elected for 2 full non-consecutive terms. Americans across the board said that the economy was the top issue, influencing their vote, helping Trump win back the White House as he promised to deliver prosperity. Fox Business's Edward Lawrence is live this morning at the White House with the very latest. Edward.
Emory and Grover Cleveland, that other president with that split term there. As you said, you've been talking about it all morning. The markets really do enjoy this choice. Who's going to be in the building here behind me now? Former President Trump, looked at these states, and it went as we expected as the night began. And then North Carolina fell for the first of the battleground states for President Trump. Then the other battleground states started to follow. In this campaign, in his campaign party speech, the president says that he will start with energy to turn the economy around, and reveled in this moment. Listen.
This will forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country. So I just want to say that on behalf of this great group of people, these are hardworking people. We're going to be paying down debt. We're going to be reducing taxes.
And voters will expect President Trump to deliver on that. The feeling in the Harris campaign is that they did enough in Philadelphia to get Pennsylvania, causing a huge turnout in that city. It ended up not being enough to overcome minority voters, as well as some women who fell for President Trump. And we have not heard from Vice President Harris yet. We do expect to hear from her later on today. We did hear from one of the loudest surrogates, Mark Cuban, who posted on X, "Congrats, real Donald Trump. You won fair and square." Now, President Biden has no public events on his schedule today. I have not seen the lights go on in the residence here behind me as of yet. If that changes, we'll let you know. Maria?
If the lights go on? What's that mean? All right, we got MSNBC Harris campaign will speak today, apparently. Let me see. This is about an hour ago.
Let's bring in from Washington, NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander. He's covering the Harris campaign. And from West Palm Beach, Florida, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard with the Trump campaign. Vaughn, we will begin with you. Donald Trump returning to the White House. What are we hearing from him?
This is for Donald Trump, a Republican Party, and now a country that has given him a mandate to go and execute on the policies that he was quite explicit he intends to bring to Washington come 2025. That's tariffs of 20 to 30% on all goods. That's installing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to oversee health care policy. That is a mass deportation program. Donald Trump has repeatedly said that he learned from his first administration and that he brought on the likes of James Mattis and John Kelly and Rex Tillerson, folks that he didn't actually know before the transition period, but this time around, he said that he will not make the same mistake again. Instead, he will look for loyal allies to install in the top capacities in his White House here. I'm told by a source who was with the campaign and the now soon-to-be transition that they're already eyeing a potential rally, quote, soon, for Donald Trump to go back on the road. Because you guys said it here. For 9 years, we have covered the MAGA movement. And for 9 years, we have traveled around this country watching millions of Americans buy into the idea of fake press, of stolen elections, of the deep states in the Justice Department. And now we have watched Donald Trump expressly over the last month make the case that Donald Trump was right about everything and that Donald Trump will fix it. And now we have heard from voters time and again that they have suggested that they believe that Donald Trump is the best person to go inside of the White House and use the executive authority to make good for their lives. And now the transition process will begin here in Palm Beach imminently.
All right, Vaughn, thank you. Let's go to Peter Alexander, who's in Washington, D.C., standing by on Vice President Harris. When do we expect to hear from her, Peter?
Well, Mika, we do anticipate we're going to hear from her at some point later today. No indication exactly when that will happen. I'm getting some indications it could happen at some point this afternoon. She's expected to speak at Howard University, where several thousand of her supporters had arrived last night. They were joyful and optimistic. In the conversations I've been having with people in and around the campaign, they felt like they really had the trajectory on their side in the course of the last several days. A week ago, they said things seemed pretty tight, but now, yesterday, they felt pretty optimistic going into the night. That quickly evaporated as the returns came in, one return after another, one state after another, falling into Donald Trump's category, and you could really just see the emotion in the eyes, these blank stares, these glum looks, some people embracing one another and appearing to share some prayers at the time. To give you a sense of sort of the field there was a party for donors in Washington, D.C., Harris donors. It was described to us by a Democrat in attendance as being like a funeral as the returns came in last night at Howard University. They ultimately muted the screen and turned music on to try to cheer folks up there. But there's going to be a real reckoning for the Democrats right now for a variety of reasons. Clearly, she underperformed with key demographics, underperformed in so many of the critical counties across the country, and she faced some real headwinds, to be very clear right now. 2/3 of Americans, according to exit polls, saying that they believe that the state of the country right now, they're dissatisfied with it or angry about it. Donald Trump won by a large margin, the 2/3 of Americans who said that the economy was either not so good or that it was poor right now. So a real frustration, not just about Kamala Harris, but about the Biden-Harris administration and sort of the direction of the economy. As they went to bed last evening, we did hear from the campaign chairman, Jen O'Malley Dillon, saying that the Blue Wall State had always remained their clearest path. They said they liked what they were seeing, but as they wake up this morning, obviously, it's a very different situation. Back to you.
Interesting. All right. Last video we're going to do, and then we're going to get out of here. Let's see what this is.
All right, let's take a look at the markets right now. Joining us for this is Marta Norton, Empowered Investments Chief Investment Strategist. Marta, you laid out some cases that and how you thought the markets might trade under each of them. It looks pretty clear this morning like this is going to be a red sweep. We still don't know for sure about the House, but it's down to a matter of a number of seats at this point.
That's what I don't understand. What does that mean? They're not so sure about the House. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean they could still say she won? Like, what does that mean? I don't understand politics. I don't get it. But this was posted 47 minutes ago.
What would you be telling investors this morning?
Well, listen, what's pretty interesting is that the question of uncertainty has been taken off the table. So we're seeing this massive market reaction. We're seeing risk assets rally, particularly small caps. We're seeing a very strong dollar. That's the Trump trade. And it's pretty interesting to see it come to fruition at this moment. I think one of the considerations for investors is that the perspective really has to be longer term. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of euphoria based on perspective in markets today. And I think that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way markets are going to trade in perpetuity. So I think a longer term perspective is really critical at these emotional moments.
Real
and
quick.
when you look longer term.
Hold on. Douglas. We have to
stop the cap
for you in the chat. If Trump doesn't fulfill a promise from crypto, not sure how many YouTubers will be able to recover from that. What are his promises on crypto? I'm waiting. Because I didn't vote for him for any promises on crypto. I voted to not have incompetence in the White House. It has nothing to do with crypto. I know crypto is going to be better under him for sure, but just in general, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. I didn't vote for him because of crypto. That has nothing to do with our YouTube channels or crypto as a whole.
What do you think that means? And what is longer term? Are you talking 6 months, a year, 2 years?
Well, I think that, somewhat depends on kind of the perspective of the investor. But I think if we're looking at kind of the enduring trends that are alive and well today, we have an economic perspective that's really a soft landing, this better balance between the labor market and inflation. That does mean rates are coming down. That is bullish for equities. And I think that's an enduring trade. But the real question mark here is how much those rates come down and what that causes from a market rotation standpoint. And I think that's somewhat of an open question today because you are weighing the consequences of a soft landing and of kind of Trump policies coming together. And so I think there's some element here where potentially we don't see the same kind of rotation that potentially we were anticipating earlier in the year, where we saw rates, the expectation that rates were going to really collapse and cause massive support. We had that 50 basis point cut from the Federal Reserve that can spur a lot of enthusiasm for equities. And now it's not clear that rates are going to come down quite to that same degree and cause quite that same tailwind.
Let's assume that the House goes to the Republicans and that this is a full-on sweep. And that means Donald Trump can go ahead and do all of the things he's been promising, the things he wants to do. How does that impact markets? Let's start with tariffs. Let's start with taxes. How do those policy changes that he's laid out, what will that mean for investors?
Well, I think first on the taxes standpoint, so if we do have a red sweep, that really does give some room to move on the tax promises. And there's both the extension of the 2017 tax cuts, and then there's also this orientation toward domestic producers, so companies that are producing their products here in the U.S. And that really favors the small cap side of things. And I think that's why you're seeing the Russell 2000 reaction that you have today. When you're talking about tariffs, it's something of an interesting question because it flips that a little bit. And the expectation for tariffs is that weighs on economic growth, and that causes the long end of the curve to have higher rates. And that's actually, not quite as positive for the small caps. And so that's where there's that kind of push-pull between these different policies that is going to impact the long term.
The tariffs question, again, we don't know how this will play out because we've had some Trump advisors tell us that this is just going to be a negotiating tool and it's really just going to be trying to get more manufacturing here in the United States. Those are some issues. If he follows through not just on extending the tax cuts, which I think everyone assumes will happen, extending those 2017 tax cuts, but the promises to not tax tips, to not tax Social Security, to not tax the litany of other areas where he said he would stop taxing some of these things. Do you think that has implications in the bond market? We do see the 10-year this morning at 4.47. Yesterday it was at 4.30. So that's a 17 basis point move. A lot of uncertainty still about what goes through, but if you are facing much bigger deficits.
Yeah, and I think that is a critical question. And of course, you've seen Wall Street analysis look at that. Of course, the deficit wasn't expected to come down under a Harris administration either. It was expected to expand, but certainly far more so. And the tax cuts and the kind of additional promises that you're laying out are part of that expectation. And so the question is, is there a bond vigilante trade that comes in at some point and kind of pushes the political will to address some of these deficit issues? I think that is a big question for the bond market today.
Interesting. All right, Alad, I'm going to play one more, and then we'll scram.
This is a very special edition of Squawk Box. NBC News now officially projecting that Donald Trump has won the presidency. Joining us right now is pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz. We've been talking to Frank now for many months in the days and weeks leading up to what's been an historic moment, Frank.
Gary.
And before we even just get into it, I wanted to get your biggest takeaway and maybe perhaps surprise, given I'm not sure that, as we've been talking, that this was not the outcome, I think, on the Electoral College map, but maybe even on the popular vote that you were expecting.
And when we'd know, which was not supposed to be till Saturday.
So how come you didn't compliment me 4 years ago when I did it?
Or
exactly
8 years ago when you said Hillary Clinton will be the next president? I don't know, Frank. I think a lot of what you've been saying the last couple of weeks I've disagreed with. I just have. And I disagree with you saying that if Kamala had changed a few things that she would have won. I disagree with that. The country was not ready. And I don't think she was ever in the lead. But Andrew, it's your interview. Go ahead.
Frank, well, just to the extent, I'm curious, on a morning like this, to the extent that anybody who is hopefully thinking about this is trying to be introspective about where they were right and where they were wrong, how do you think about it?
I think that the debate didn't matter. And that's the single thing that bothers me the most. And it's the
not even the cat eating? Not even the cat eating you're almost crying about, Frank?
No, it's a surprise to me that the public, and Joe, you, that it didn't bother you. And it doesn't bother the public. But the public has spoken. And what's impressive about this is that Donald Trump is able to survive an onslaught of criticism through much of this campaign, and not only survive, but thrive. That he's going to win the popular vote, which I did not expect. That he's going to win all the swing states, which nobody knew. That, in fact, not only is he winning, but he's bringing a Senate with him and likely a House with him.
Is he talking about, like, the cats and dogs, eating cats and dogs thing? That was, like, very weird to say, but also very true. Is that what he's talking about? Because I'm pretty positive last night I was listening to Hawk and he said that he saw with his own eyes somebody posted a fucking cat on a stick. It's like it's not unrealistic to think that people would go to a pond and kill a duck or a fucking goose, right, to like eat it if you're hungry. Like it's kind of normal. People hunt animals all the time. I mean, the cat things, if that shit's really happening, I guess like people have seen it happen. So it's really not that crazy to think about people. If you're hungry, you're going to go get something to eat. You know what I mean? Especially if you're illegal, you don't have money and you just came here, like you're going to eat whatever's there. That's just how it is.
This is significant.
And so what does that say, Frank? So as somebody who's been in this business a long time, what does that say to you?
People just don't like that he says shit that's like, that's real. Like people don't want to hear it. Pussified America. It's ridiculous.
About either the strength of Trump as a candidate.
Chinese food is 50% cat, so that's messed up.
And as a communicator, the weakness perhaps of Vice President Harris as a candidate and communicator. Does it say something more broadly about the country and policy and the way they're thinking about this, the different parties? How do you break that down?
It's all three. Andrew, you're correct in all three cases. That Donald Trump's support was so intense that it did not matter what people said about him. It did not matter what happened at his rallies. It did not matter his debate performance. They were going to stay with him because they believe in him and they're committed to him. And that is half the country. Harris's campaign, in their inability or unwillingness to define exactly what they would do in the first hours, the first days, weeks, and months, that her unwillingness to level with the American people and explain why some of her issues have changed, demonstrated what a weak candidate she was. And in the end, it would have had to have been someone else, not her, who could have beaten Trump. And as far as the country is concerned,
Frank, there's going to be a lot of recriminations in the Democratic Party, probably starting with Biden and Harris. But my question is, do you think that Biden, therefore, should have stuck in this? Would have been a different outcome?
They should have had a vote. The public had a right to choose. This is the first vice president or the first candidate for president, other than when you have, God forbid, an assassination. She had never put herself to the test. She had failed in 2020. This is probably the most important thing for viewers. Her one chance to run for president, she had done such a horrible job, and that she didn't improve after 4 years. But in the end, it's also the public's disdain for high prices, their disdain for insecurity at the border and across the country, and their demand that the last 4 years, that they did not succeed, that they failed on the inflation and affordability, and that the public did not want 4 more years of it. In the end,
it would have been miserable if we had 4 more years of this.
And it was the public saying enough with an exclamation point and all caps.
Thank God.
When you think about what happens next in terms of the politics in Washington, it does look like we may be headed towards a sweep. What policies get enacted, what don't, what acts as a governor or not on that. I know we've talked a lot about the business community oftentimes saying they like divided government. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, given that we actually have the Dow looking like it's going to open up 1,250 points higher right now.
Yeah, and the fact is that they look at Trump's policies. They were assuming that Harris had a good shot. It's one of the reasons why the stock market is doing so well right now, is that they know that tax policies are going to be different, that growth policies are going to be different. The question is, do they stand on tariffs? Because that's going to be a significant dispute in Washington, both in the White House and in Congress, and what happens with that.
So do you think all the economists, though, Frank, do you think all the economists, I mean, look, you heard Kamala Harris say it. By the way, I repeated it. The Nobel Prize-winning economists who all said that Trump's economy was going to become a problem. Even Elon Musk saying at certain points that he thought there would be temporary hardship. It'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next 4 years, of course. But clearly the American public did not look at that and say that either they thought that was accurate or that they cared, right?
And neither is the business community. They may have said one thing a week ago, but they're saying something completely different right now. And you can see that they vote by how they're investing, by how they're committing more dollars, and why the market's going to open up so much higher. That's their statement, that they agree with what happened. And my only warning is that we still are divided, that even with the Republicans gaining a clear control of the Senate and keeping control of the House with a couple, maybe 3, 4 additional seats, we're still an evenly divided country, maybe 51-49. And that I'm hoping that this ugliness and this gotcha politics can somehow subside, so that we can once again have these really strong emotional fights, but do so with respect, with civility, with decency, that we haven't seen in the last, frankly, in the last 8 years.
If you were, Frank, if you were running, we got to run, but if you were running the DNC right now and you were trying to be introspective to the degree you could be, what would you be telling them they need to rethink?
I'd be giving them 3 names: Cory Booker, Wes Moore, and Mitch Landrieu. All brilliant political people that have amazingly strong records and know how to communicate the values of the American people. Either of those 3 people could have beaten Donald Trump. Not saying they would have, but could have. And that's what the Democratic Party needs: people who understand and come from the community and know how to communicate.
I noticed one name's not on that list that I thought might be. Shapiro from Pennsylvania.
Okay, Shapiro and maybe Gretchen Whitmer. But I'll tell you one thing: the Democratic nominee for vice president, he's not on that list.
Interesting. All right, I got to get into the recap segment of things for anybody just joining. Kamala Harris has lost. All right, let's see. In the chat, somebody did say that Trump promised to provide regulatory clarity in the first 100 days. Busted thong. Oh, that name, Jesus. Anyways, yeah. So, yeah, that is one thing he did promise: regulatory clarity. I didn't know there was a time on it, a day on it, but that's awesome. I hope that happens. So, if Douglas, if that's who you're talking about, sure. But again, it has nothing to do with us. Just in general, we needed competence in the White House, and we got it. Hopefully nothing changes in the next couple days. I still don't understand it. I think it should be just like yay or nay, and I'm assuming it's yay, but is what it is. Anybody just joining, Bitcoin did break a brand new all-time high last night during the election. We had 75,300, but right now we're at 73,713. We have Ethereum at 2614. Solana's at 186 bucks. A Duke and a Solana, amazing. Dogecoin's been killing it, up to about 20 cents or so. It was actually up about 20%. I just swapped out a little bit of Dogecoin in case we have a pullback. 20% is quite a bit on the day. It was 20% right when we started. Gaspa is at it's up almost 10% today to almost 12 cents, 11.7. This is a great day to be in crypto, says DJ Death Star. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, dude. You're awesome. Appreciate you. Miss my man DJ. LTC 69.58. Let's see, that's up 6% or so, a little over 6%. Near Protocol is up almost 10% as well to $4.11. Everything is looking fantastic today. It is a great day to be in crypto. Everything's pumping, everything. But with that being said, make sure you guys take profits. If you're like up a decent amount, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It could have a pullback. Typically things don't go up and then go up another 20%, right? Like you're going to see things pull back. So just make sure you guys are aware of that. All right, flashbang, crypto fear and greed index. We're at a 70 as of right now. Tomorrow, this is going to be much higher. That's my opinion. We're going to have to see, right? Be fearful when people are greedy and be greedy when people are fearful. It's the best thing to live by. In my opinion, Mr. Andrew Massad, good time for a benchmark. Trump for the win. LFG. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for being a member for 14 months. You're insane. All right, guys. With that being said, I got to get out of here. Daddy Judy calls. Also, you guys were asking. See that in the chat. I've had this for a while. I just haven't had it on the wall. I've not put it on the wall yet. It's still in a plastic bag because I don't want fingerprints and shit all over it, and that's really blurry. But yeah, I had it over there on my my desk. I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna move this whole setup back into my other room once I get it like completely situated, and this is gonna be like my make video area because it's just, yeah, I don't know, it's too big. There's too much shit. Like I don't want to like always have to keep this clean. It's a fucking nightmare. All right, I can't put stuff anywhere. But anyways, you guys have a great, happy, and safe Wednesday. Hopefully all stays well with Mr. Trump being our brand new 47th president of the United States. You guys have a good day, and I'll catch you guys bright and early tomorrow morning around 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace, and have a good day.
Eat shit, Gary.